Stephane Wrembel live in Studio B with his band. Oh, thank you for coming in, especially in the morning. It can be hard for musicians with long drives at night after a late night show, and then you show up here and perform live on the radio. What?
It's all good. We're early birds.
Good, good.
Yes.
Or some folks just stay up all through the night, and then they go to sleep after the live radio session. That works too.
Yeah, it's possible too.
What was that piece you just played?
It's called Apocalypse.
Apocalypse. Okay.
Yes.
Did you write that?
Oh yeah, it's one of my compositions from the album Terre des Hommes.
Okay.
I think it's my third album, fourth. Yes, fourth.
Hard to keep track.
I don't know.
We have a whole slew of your series of the Django Experiment. We might be missing the fourth one. I'm not sure. You're up to 4 volumes now, plus and a great live release too from up in Rochester, and following the tradition of Django Reinhardt. And you are from his region? Perhaps?
Town.
His town, his very town. All right.
There is a town called Fontainebleau. It's like about an hour south of Paris. And actually, Fontainebleau is a forest. It's a very special forest. And, it used to be the bottom of a sea, so there is like a sand, like sea sand soil.
Wow.
And it's in the middle of land, it's like hundreds of miles from any ocean or anything. So it has like a very weird, it's like a unique vegetation and all. And it has like a very special vibe in there. Impressionism was born there. Right. That was the home of the kings. It's a very special place. It's a little bit under the radar. It's been kept under the radar. And Django moved there, It's like the land of impressionists and stuff. And so it's a forest with a city called Fontainebleau. And around Fontainebleau, the main city, there is tons of little villages. And he was based in Samois-sur-Seine, one of these little villages touching the center of Fontainebleau. So that's Django's home, really, basically.
Yeah. The way you describe the sandy soil and the uniqueness of it, it calls to mind what a lot of fans of fine wine will know, the term terroir, French terroir, a certain region, soil that makes that uniqueness of each individual wine. Sounds like there's a certain terroir there that breeds great creativity.
Yeah.
I mean, if Django Reinhardt and Impressionism comes from
the Impressionists, they were born there for sure, at the precise inn. It's like there is an epicenter.
Yeah.
But there is there is a lot of, Debussy was there, Ravel was there. Actually, the very famous poet Stéphane Mallarmé was there. And he wrote the poem Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, influencing Debussy and all. So everyone was like in that region always.
Mm-hmm. So you grew up kind of surrounded by it, and I would love to talk about your history of how you learned this. It's pretty fascinating. But not only, of course, did you learn the music of Django Reinhardt and Stéphane Grappelli and all that great tradition, but all sorts of other styles too. And as you just demonstrated, you've come to compose your own pieces from it as well. When did you start composing your own?
I started, I always composed a little bit. But I started recording my composition in 2005, I think, 4. I forgot which year exactly, for my second studio album called Barbès Brooklyn. That was like, I think 7 out of the 10 pieces were compositions. And then after that, for a few years, I recorded only compositions. It's only recently that I wanted to do a tribute to Django. So I started this series called the Django Experiment. And now it's like we release a new one every year on Django's birthday.
Yeah, which is in January.
Yes.
And you're playing at the Grey Eagle in Asheville tonight. They do an annual Django Reinhardt birthday celebration. I think you've been at one of those.
It's John Corbin organized it. He's
John
amazing.
Corbin, yes.
John Corbin is amazing. He's an amazing player. And he's also, he worked very hard to bring that in Asheville. And his event is incredible. We were part of it like a year, not 2019, but 2018, I believe.
Okay.
And are we in 2019? Yes.
We are.
I'm
yeah.
confused. Yeah.
Time zones and all, it's hard to tell, right?
Yeah. We were there in 2018, and that was like an incredible event. He does such a great job. And the Grey Girl is like such a great venue, and that's why we're very happy to finally be back there tonight. And very excited about that.
Good. Yeah, that is tonight at the Grey Eagle in Asheville. It's your one show in our listening area, because then you head over to the coast and Charleston, Murrells Inlet, wonderful little town there,
Yeah.
and Charlottesville, New York City, where you're from. You've been living in Brooklyn, I think, right, for a little while.
Oh yeah, for 10 years.
10 years now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're
No, I
going-
moved to Maplewood in New Jersey.
Okay.
Beautiful little town.
Yeah.
Right near the airport, right near the city, and beautiful and quiet, and a lot of art and everything, nature. It's just an amazing place.
It's called what? Maplewood?
Maplewood.
It sounds like the Fontainebleau of New Jersey.
It kind of is. Like, people make fun of me. They say, "Oh, you found Fontainebleau like in America." Good for you.
All right. We'll see that on their billboards. The Maple, their Chamber of Commerce will start using that.
Yeah.
All right. It's Stephane Wrembel and his wonderful band on WNCW. Let's hear another tune from them. But we have Sarah Labriola on guitar with Stephane, and then it's Ari Folman-Cohen on the bass, and Nick Anderson doing great work on our drums today here in Studio B. Live session from Stephane Wrembel. What's next?
I would love for us to play a traditional song then, because we're speaking of Django and the Impressionists and all that. I'd love for us to play a song called Les Flots du Danube. It's a traditional song, so we don't know who wrote it, but we play it like you see with our own angle.
This is absolutely magnificent. Stephane Wrembel here on WNCW with his band live here in Studio B, featuring Nick Anderson. What a drum solo there. I was kind of like on the edge of my seat. It felt like it was teetering on the edge of the precipice of something, and that great buildup you all have with the rest of the bandmates. And that is, you said it's a traditional tune. Is it Les Flots du Danube?
Les Flots du Danube.
Okay. The float, F-L-O-T-E-S, what are they?
It's the current
The currents. Okay.
of the Danube,
Yeah.
of that river.
Yeah. And you learned it from...
I don't know.
Okay.
It's in the air, you know.
Yeah, it's just
We
kinda,
play songs, we learn them. It's that's how it is.
Yeah, it just kind of you absorb it, I guess.
This is how you learn, you know, in the gypsy camps. You just go with your guitar, sit down and play, and you just like memorize things on the spot, learn things on the spot. You play them for hours, and then like you end up knowing them. And after a while, like 20 years later, you don't remember anything. It's just there. You don't know why.
It just is, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens. The more you think about something, and the more you try and rationalize or interpret something, the harder time you have. You've written well, I think, about how you learned in these camps, these these gypsy camps or jazz camps, that they don't necessarily have words or instructions on the technique of it. You just play, like you were saying. You end up absorbing it.
It's immersion.
Immersion.
There is something you absolutely cannot get through technique, you know, through a rational. It's like explaining a poem with rational. You know, you can explain it on the grammatical point of view or with the number of rhymes or whatever you want. That still doesn't change that there is the other side of it, which is unexplainable. Carl Jung used to say, the conscious is not the contrary of the subconscious. The subconscious is what exists outside of the conscious. And I tend to think that everything that is irrational is whatever exists outside of the rational.
Yeah, yeah.
Not opposite to rational, but exists outside of it.
Outside of it. Yeah.
Illimited.
Did you find when you were first starting to learn and getting immersed that it was a challenge, this way of learning?
Actually, for me, it works great. This is how I like to learn. I like to learn by, I don't even know how. I just like to be immersed in something and learn it. The rational explanation of things has always been a problem for me. Mm-hmm. I get the information, I think, like rather quickly when I just don't think about it. I just get it like that. And then later on, I can rationalize it. But at first, it's better for me to get it on... I guess charged with the logos, you know, charged with the energy of, like the soul of it or something like that. You know, everything contains a certain kind of information, and it's important to get the information at the same time as you get the rational explanation. To me, it's always been like that.
I get the sense that I don't know if most, but many of the best artists operate that way. It's more going by a feeling than implying rational thought, applying rational thought. And I wonder if folks that are wanting to learn this style, but the way to learn it is to learn it by immersion and quieting the mind, if you will. If learning from Carl Jung, reading Carl Jung, like you mentioned, if that maybe helps some of them to kind of overcome it and push through.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Carl Jung.
Yeah, you're a fan of him, huh?
Oh, yeah, I read Carl Jung and Plato.
Okay,
That's what I do.
Yeah?
When I'm not playing music.
When you're not playing music,
Yes.
you're reading Carl Jung and Plato.
Yes.
Okay, good.
But that's why I have a festival called Django a Go-Go I organize every year. Actually, in my town of Maplewood, in New York City, we always have a final show at the town hall. It's like a legendary hall. And I bring like all those masters from France, like some of the like living legends from there. And they're like the greatest players. And we do a guitar camp. So we have 30 students. And for the whole week, it's complete immersion. The students are learning from the master, being like inside the camp, like playing all day long, then going to the shows, then going to the jams. So it's like a complete immersion thing. And I believe that's really the best way to learn the information that is contained within it. Because you can always transcribe Django or whoever you want. You transcribe Django, you can get the notes maybe. But there is that other thing that is a mystery that you cannot get if you are not immersed in it. You just cannot. It's not possible.
I think that can be applied to other arts too, including
All arts, yes.
baking, cooking,
Absolutely.
Yes, you have the right ingredients and you're following the recipe and you have the oven at 350 or whatever, but there's a je ne sais quoi, there's something else that needs to be included. Now, this this festival and camp immersion that you talk about, that's in other styles too, traditional styles, Celtic music, old time, bluegrass, that like we play a lot here. Have you ever participated in any of these other traditional music styles? Have you gotten
Not
any
really.
exposure?
Not really. Django is my foundation. But I don't see Django as an end in itself. I see it as a beginning. It's like a source, a never-ending source for learning and a source of knowledge and a source of expansion. Usually, what everyone knows about Django is the swing side, and those techniques have been kept by the gypsies. So that's what we know most, but not many people know the side of Django that is a classical composer. And it's a very important thing. I just finished to record 17 preludes written by Django that have never been released. No one has ever cared to learn them or put them together or make it a whole, So I'm going to play them on... the premiere is going to be October 19 at the Lyons Opera in France, at the Lyons Opera House. So this is like complete classical work. And that's the foundation of Django's playing. It's like he's very influenced by Bach, but also by Debussy and Ravel. And that's like been completely avoided. I don't know why, but there is that. There is the fact that Django was a great musette player, the art of waltz. That's how he learned. That's so important to know that. And jazz arrived like later on in his life. He's already like maybe 18 or 20 when he learns jazz. So he has like other musics in the background, traditional, like probably flamenco. There's probably other things that are in his playing before there is even swing coming. So Django is the guitar-made man, like he really, to me, Django Reinhardt is what Bach is to the keyboard. No matter what you play, if you study the guy, you're going to learn something about your instrument, for sure. Because he set up like all the foundation for the modern way of playing it.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. To learn that Django Reinhardt is so much more than just the swing style. That you're right. That's kind of the vast majority of what we've learned. I wonder why that is. That only that one swing jazz style has been.
It's not being presented too, because the way that these preludes have been recorded is always at the end of like a recording session with his band. So not the best conditions. It's not prepared for like a classical type of recording. So the sound is not very good. And it's like one song here, one song there. It's never been taken seriously back then. And you cannot take like all his solo track and make an album with it, because the sound is too different. There's like also old radio shows. Like I had to dig in those archives to like find them and stuff. Like it's kind of like all over the place, and no one ever cared to put it together. And it's also so much work that no one really like had the will to do that before, you know. But that was like the last 3 years of my life. That's what I've been doing, is working on that, you know, on those preludes. And that's now it will exist as a whole, you know what I mean? And once it exists as a whole, I hope that it's going to inspire other people to study them and to learn them, because it's a fantastic repertoire. It's classical music like we've never heard before, because although it's on the guitar, it's not classical guitar, not at all. But it's not. It's like Debussy, but on the guitar, but not classical guitar. It's a unique thing.
Maybe hard to put into words.
Do you want me to play one?
I would love that, please.
Let's do that. I'm going to play actually the first one he ever recorded in 1937. At the end of a studio session, they said, "Do you want to record? Do you want to improvise something?" He said, "Okay, sure." So he played it, and it didn't have a name, so they called it improvisation. But obviously, it's not improvisation. We should not hear it as like, okay, I sit and I noodle on my guitar. It's obviously something that has been prepared and composed for like a long time. And you will see it really reflects the soul of Debussy and Ravel and the Impressionists.
That is Stephane Wrembel on his guitar here at WNCW, and featuring the classical side of Django Reinhardt. You said these are pieces like Debussy and Bach, the classical inspirations of Django that were recorded and played by him, but just kind of were kind of lost to history then.
Well, they are recorded, but they are so hard to play, especially at 11 in the morning. There's some very difficult, like, technical moments in there. They are so hard to play and memorize that no one really goes there. And it's not the jazz mind, you know? So when you learn them, you have to study them with a very different approach, you know? So it's a completely different thing. So I don't know, it's like very classical in the way, you know? You study like the movements of every voice and how chords should sound and all that. There is a real work that must be done in working on an interpretation of this piece, finding the right tempos, making it like I forget the word now. I'm gonna find like a well-balanced whole. You know what I mean? It's very complicated to do, and there is like 17 of them. So not only like you have to memorize each one of them. Some of them are very long. The last two, Belleville and Nuage, are like almost 10-minute long each.
Right.
So it's like long stuff, like a lot of music to remember, and a lot of parts to carve. And you have to carve not only each piece, but the whole thing as a whole, you know, the 17 pieces as a whole, for it to make sense, you know. So it's definitely a certain type of work, you know, of precision.
Yeah. Well, there are certainly thousands of just hardcore rabid fans of Django Reinhardt and Stephane Grappelli, and they must be just so amazed and minds blown to hear this music that they perhaps hadn't encountered before. And you said this you're featuring it in a festival in Lyon, France later this year?
No, it's the premiere.
Okay,
it's a concert.
Okay.
I call the album Django the Impressionist. I call the show also Django the Impressionist. Great. And so it's the first time it's going to play live from beginning to end, like all 17 periods. It's like a classical recital.
Right. Wow, wonderful. Meanwhile, a lot of the music that we hear when we listen to this style is more of this structure, somewhat. It's two guitars, right? You've got these two guitars, and today you have a Sarah Labriola joining you, and then you have a wonderful bass, you have drums here, and then do you sometimes, I guess, bring in other instruments? Is there more of a real traditional framework for the jazz stylings, the Django Reinhardt style?
Well, Django, traditionally, the first band is 3 guitars, bass, and violin. It was they used to call it jazz without horns and drums and percussion. It was just like strings, which has really not been done before, at least to that level. And so that first band was focused on that. And Django insisted on having 2 rhythm guitar because it brings more power. And then in the early 40s, he started like, instead of having 2 rhythm guitar, he started adding a drums, and then usually a clarinet, and then all kinds of instruments like again violin or saxophone, whatever. But the foundation of the rhythm was became like bass, guitar, and drums.
Yeah.
And I think that brings a lot of power in the bottom, you know, in the groove. And that's one of the main components of Django's music. It's the groove. So it needs to groove a specific way. Unlike jazz, it's a bit more like, it's almost more like pop music, where we keep a very steady groove, you know what I mean? Like when you listen to a rock band, it has kind of like a more steady kind of groove. It doesn't go like all over the place. And that's what we do. We kind of lock a very steady groove. And even in my composition, I try to always keep the groove strong and steady, no matter what the song is. There is always like something always there, I cannot find my words this morning. It's terrible. Like a heartbeat or something like that.
Yeah.
It's always there, you know?
Right, yeah. That's a good groove. Well, you've got a great groove and a great synergy with this group here. Ari Folman-Cohen on the bass, Nick Anderson on drums. And if the 4 of you could do one more piece together, we've got time for one more, and then you'll be heading up to Asheville for your show tonight.
Nashville.
At the
I
Grey
think
Eagle.
I would love to play the song that I wrote for the Woody Allen movie Midnight in Paris. It's a song called Bistro Fada. That's a waltz. And they asked me to write it to capture the soul of Paris. And that's what I tried to do. And also, this is what Django, that was Django's ground of learning music. He became a professional when he was 10, and he learned the musette by playing like the songs all night long, you know? So it's kind of like, he joined Django and Paris and the movies and all that. So it's called Bistro Fada from the movie Midnight in Paris.
Stephane Wrembel, live on WNCW. Stephane Wrembel from Maplewood, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Which we have established is Le Fontainebleau de l'État Jardin. And with Sarah Labriola on guitar and Ari Folman-Cohen on bass, Nick Anderson on drums. Stephane Wrembel, thanks for bringing these folks in. Thanks for being here again today.
Thank you for having us. We're very happy to be here.
Playing tonight at the Grey Eagle in Asheville, and then various other shows. You can follow him through his website, stephanerembel.com. Rembel is Wrembel. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Live Studio B sessions are brought to you by Sierra Nevada Brewing Company.